Chapter 27, Warehouse. Does Master Splinter know about any of this? April asked. The guilty looks she got from the three brothers said all there was to say about that. Don't worry, I won't tell him. It sounds like you're doing the right thing anyway, April reassured them. The three turtles and April then took to the roofs. April was eventually found to be far too slow and refused to jump between buildings. She screamed at them about something to do with the possibility of death. As a result, Donatello gave her a piggyback ride most of the way to the warehouse, to which Raph and Mikey giggled at and made love-heart hand gestures in their direction. April did not notice due to her immense fright whenever they jumped between buildings, and Donatello chose to ignore them, although his teeth remained noticeably gritted with apparent annoyance for much of the journey. Splinter returned to the lair early after Leonardo had sent him a single one-word text on his shell cell that said, "Help." Leonardo raced up to him and began to shout in a panic-stricken tone, "Father, they have gone up to the surface to that warehouse. I tried to stop them, but no one would listen." Surprisingly, Master Splinter seemed to be less cross at his other sons and angry at Leonardo himself. "Well, why did you let them leave?" he shouted in a very serious tone. There was nothing I could do, Father. They went despite my commands," Leonardo answered shakily. "And I take it you did not try to physically stop them?" "Well, why would I do that? You will have to learn that it is hard to fight your enemies, but even harder to fight your friends and indeed family. However, sometimes you must, especially when they are naive as hell about the power of the deadliest man in the world." "Sorry, Father. I understand your heart is in the right place, but you cannot afford to be soft on your brothers, especially if they are going to be putting themselves in such wild danger." "Why did you then not follow them?" Master Splinter asked. "I thought it was better to stay here and tell you what happened, but I should follow them and make sure they don't get into any trouble. I promise I will be back soon." And with that, he left to try and follow his brothers. What did they really think they would achieve? Master Splinter chose to stay in the lair. Part of him wanted to follow Leonardo to his other sons, but he knew they had to eventually learn to manage without him, so he stayed in the lair ready to leave if one of his sons called him for aid. For about 15 minutes. Pacing backwards and forwards, worrying. Then he left. He didn't care that the lair would be unguarded or that Leonardo was going to help anyway. They were his sons. This was his battle. He quickened his pace. What on earth had told him to stay in the first place? He began to run. Why, for the love of sanity, had he then let Leonardo go when he had at least possessed the chance to save him? He was moving a lot faster now. And what kind of father was he for only realising this after quite a few minutes had already passed? Splinter was pretty sure his feet were not even touching the ground anymore with the speed at which he pelted towards his endangered children. The party of April and the three turtles eventually reached the warehouse, which, since Raph and Mikey's confrontation with the guards, had tripled in security. The three turtles looked at this and then gave each other quizzical expressions in the hope that one of them would miraculously come up with a clever plan. Ironically, they were putting all of their thoughts into this thought and not actually thinking what they wanted each other to think about. April watched this for a few minutes and then realised if she did not intervene, they could be there for the next 5 years. "Okay, if none of you can think of something, may I suggest an idea?" "Okay, we're pretty desperate at this point, so yeah, go on then," said Raphael. "Right," began April, trying to ignore the non-veiled insult. "I am not a ninja, so it makes sense you should do all the fighting. I think I should distract the guards so you three can find a way in and I will remain outside to lead the guards away from you. Then Donatello can snoop around looking for any evidence linked to you guys, as he is most likely to understand what you need to be looking for, and you two can fight off any possible threats to the investigation. Any questions?" Donatello looked very happy, nodded gleefully and uttered, "Thank you for recognizing my intelligence. Your plan is perfect, and as are you." "I'm glad you think so. Shall we get on with it, then?" She strolled towards the guards and thought carefully about what to ask. "Hello?" she called out. "I'm a bit lost. I'm looking for the hospital." All 6 guards turned towards the girl that had walked up to them. "Hey, you can't be here! You're in a restricted area!" one of them commanded. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. She began to fake sob. Oh, God, I'm going to be in so much trouble. All I wanted to do was visit my ill grandpa, and now I've got lost, and I'm going to end up in a juvenile prison, I'm so sorry. Don't kill me. Please, I'll do anything. I beg of you, please. She cried in mock begging. Donatello gave her a double thumbs up, and she subtly winked, and then continued to cry in the most innocent way imaginable. Meanwhile, the turtles had taken the opportunity to hide behind some nearby bushes and used their grappling hooks to cling to the building and climb their way over the fence to get inside the warehouse compound. One of the guards said, with a slightly Japanese touch to his accent, "We will give you the benefit of the doubt this time, but don't let us catch you here again, understood?" April nodded and ran back to the bushes. Then she began to try and climb a nearby tree to make the guards believe she was going to use the tree to swing herself into the confines of the warehouse fence. One of the guards caught this out of the corner of his eye and turned to face her. April meant to jump down, but instead lost her grip and fell. She landed on her front with one hand outstretched and briefly knocked her head on the solid ground. She felt her wrist bend backwards and tried not to yelp in pain. She was also aware of a dull throbbing coming from her forehead. She hastily got up and tried to keep moving until she was all the way to the end of the street. She looked back to see if all the guards had followed her, and thankfully they had. All she had to do now was ensure they were as far away from the turtles as possible. She dived under the shadow between two streetlights and then into a side alley, and the guards, having not seen her do so, continued to run straight past her. It took April a moment to realise something warm was dripping from her forehead. She reached out and instinctively jabbed at the source. She really wished she hadn't, as she had tenderised an already large cut above her left eye that she had received from the fall. As she looked down at herself, she realised she was covered in mud and her jeans had ripped in one knee. Could she pass that off as a fashion choice to her parents when she got home later? All the while, on the other side of the gate, Raphael reached into his belt pocket and used his previously gained security card to activate the main doors. The doors opened. Raphael examined the card, which read Name A. Gregory, DOB 0514 1984. For some reason, seeing his details made Raphael almost feel sorry for him, but he allowed this thought to be discontinued in order to pursue the mission.